Number 2, lobbyists. Lobbyists is like American politics' oldest trick in the book. Back in 1792, some Virginia veterans were like, "Hey, we want more money for fighting the war," and hired a dude named William Hull to sweet talk Congress into coughing up some extra cash. The term lobby started being thrown around in state houses in the 1800s. And before you know it, people were camping outside Congress chambers trying to charm those politicians into seeing things their way. And hey, thanks to the First Amendment, we all have the right to petition the government, which apparently includes the right to lobby. The sweet sound of persuasion in action. Clearly, lobbyists has evolved since 1792. But how exactly? To wrap our heads around those seemingly contradictory truths can coexist, let's take a jaunty journey through the evolution of lobbying from the days of our founding fathers to the chaotic present. Believe it or not, there are actually fewer registered lobbyists in DC now than in the past 20 years. But something is definitely off balance in Washington. We got corporations shelling out a whopping $2.6 billion a year on lobbying expenses, which is more than the $2 billion as taxpayers dish out to keep the lights on the House and the Senate. It's like we got a financial seesaw going on here. And let's just say the corporate side is starting to get a little too comfy up in the air. Since the early 2000s, we've been watching this gap widen to the point where it's practically a canyon. I mean, how is lobbying even legal? Let me break it down. Number 1, the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution includes language that bars Congress from limiting individual freedoms, including the right of people to petition their government. This language can be interpreted from the beginning to extend the protection of the right to lobby. Number 2, President Ulysses S. Grant reputed to have them coin the term lobbyist, referring to the men who populated the lobby of the famed Willard Hotel, approaching him for influence. However, some sources date the origin of the term to lobby as early as 1837. So the U.S. Grant story is in dispute number 2. By 1876, lobbyists were required to register with Congress. In 1995, Congress passed the Lobbying Disclosure Act, LDA, to tighten up requirements for disclosure. It is widely known that many lobbyists underreport activities or fail to comply entirely. Shocking, I know. In 2007, the Honest Leadership and Open Government Act of 2007 was passed to increase the level of reporting and transparency in government. In 2015, the Carmen Group, a lobbying firm, was charged with a $125,000 fine for failing to disclose lobbying activity, marking the first charge of its kind since the 1995 legislation has passed. Finally, currently lobbyists lobbying. It's like almost it's their job or something. As this timeline unfolded, lobbyists quickly realized that the Department of Justice was about as lax in enforcing disclosure rules as a teenager with a curfew. Firms started treating reporting requirements like they were optional, skipping over them with a wink and a nod. Meanwhile, the world of lobbying was transforming faster than a chameleon at a rainbow convention. Lobbyists began getting creative, finding new ways to work their magic outside the confines of the rules. Strategic planning, grassroots campaigns, and other stealthy tactics became the new norm. The end result? There are now fewer registered lobbyists in Washington than there are There are now fewer registered lobbyists in Washington than there are obscure Star Wars characters. It's truly a political jungle, and only the sneakiest, most conniving survive. Enter the new era of lobbying in Washington, D.C., folks. Thanks to the wonders of social media, gone are the days of slow-moving strategies and behind-the-scenes maneuvers. Now, lobbyists can just slide into reporters' DMs and tweet directly about legislation, directly about legislation staff, faster than you can say dark money. With just a few clicks. Nonprofits, trade groups, grassroots organizations, and corporations can now reach a wider audience and sway public opinion with the power of a well-crafted hashtag. When corporations became politics back in the 1970s, their approach to lobbying was more like a squirrel crossing the street, cautious, reactive, and desperately trying to avoid getting squashed by the regulatory truck. They were like a pack of scared little puppies yelping at the looming threat of consumer protection, or whimpering at the threat of labor law reform, and barking madly about the government trampling on the sacred crown of free enterprise. But as the time marched on and labor movements lost their spark, and governments started lining up in favor of industry, corporations began to see politics not as a threat, but as a potential treat. They went from lobbying as a group of scared puppies to a pack of hungry wolves, sniffing out every opportunity to grab a juicy bone of profits and assistance from the government. As for their lobbying efforts grew from a timid whimper to a wolf snarl, corporations became more focused on their own interests. Like a dog trying to retrieve a treat stuffed inside of a chew toy. Their investments became more targeted, more aggressive, and more worldwide, fueled by the cutthroat competition to be the biggest, baddest lobbyists in town. So who are the top 10 lobbyists in America? Number 1, surprise, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Didn't see that one coming. 2, National Association of Realtors. 3, Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America. 4, American Hospital Association. 5, Blue Cross Blue Shield. A lot of health thing up here. 6, Meta. Shocking! Remember TikTok? Yeah, they lobbied for that. Business Roundtable. 9, American Chemistry Council. And 10, AARP. Top lobbyists have been working overtime to help their clients zigzag through the maze of regulations coming from the Biden administration. It's like the high-stakes game of regulatory hopscotch as billions of dollars in funding, grants, and tax credits are being dished out faster than you can say Inflation Reduction Act, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and CHIPS and Science Act. It's kind of hard, but get what I'm saying. It's a lobbyist's dream come true, or a nightmare depending on how much caffeine they've consumed. Just so you guys know, P.S. Amazon was number 11. If lobbying is as American as apple pie, what's with all the tension with regards to AIPAC? Well, AIPAC. All regards to AIPAC. Well, AIPAC, also known as the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, is under the super PAC, the United Democracy Project, the UDP. Is a foreign interest group that claims to be nonpartisan, but definitely has a favorite in the Israel debate. It's all about unconditional love for Israel. These people will defend Israel against any and all criticism, no matter how questionable their human rights record may be. These guys are like that one friend who always has blind allegiance to Israel, no matter what. Even when the government's making moves that would make it the most die-hard supporters raise an eyebrow. But that's not what's happening when But that's what happens when 365 House of Representatives are funded by AIPAC. Kind of makes sense why the current Big G in Palestine is very one-sided. Enter Reject AIPAC, consisting of 20 advocacy groups, a powerhouse coalition to push back against AIPAC's attempts to hush up all the juicy disagreements brewing in Congress over Israel's actions in Gaza, stating that AIPAC advocates for the U.S. foreign policy directly at odds with human rights and international humanitarian law, and has supported an unconditional flow of U.S. military funding and weapons to the Israel government. That has been used to support human rights violations against Palestinians. Gen Z, yeah, we're not afraid to voice our objection, especially when it comes to the Big G. The latest opinion polls show that there's even a growing fan base for the boycott, sanctions, and divestment (DBS) movement. AIPAC is all in a tizzy over the whole Israel being compared to apartheid in South Africa thing. It's like they just can't handle the heat when it comes to a human rights group calling them out for their not so peaceful practices. I mean, who knew that pointing out the obvious would cause such a stir? Guess the truth hurts, huh? AIPAC has been known to play a little game of choosing wisely with their supports with our Congress members. Rumor has it that if a candidate dares to accept certain endorsements, they can kiss AIPAC's backing goodbye. It's like the ultimate political ultimatum. Choose your friends wisely or risk losing some serious Congress, according to some Democrats. Some have been said, and I quote, I've seen people who have had said, I can't vote that way because I don't want AIPAC's opponent. I don't want an AIPAC opponent, said Representative Mark Pocan, Democrat of Wisconsin, and an outspoken critic of the group. That says a lot. AIPAC is basically the dark money group in Washington. In 2003, they broke records by raising a boatload of money, and their super PAC is sitting pretty with over $40 billion to blow in campaigns. And guess what? Democrats and Republicans alike are lining up to drop some serious coin, with big shots like hedge fund guru Paul Singer and WhatsApp wizard Jane Common getting in on the action. Money talks, and AIPAC is Jane Common getting in on the action. Money talks, and AIPAC is definitely speaking the language of power and influence. So what does this registered 50C4 get their funding? Yeah, now let's slow it down here and start at the beginning. Since it was funded in the 1940s, remember Israel became a country in 1948, AIPAC was like Scrooge McDuck of lobbyists, hoarding its cash, refusing to dip its pockets for elections. But oh, how times have changed. Now they're ready to make it rain like a monsoon in the rainforest to support their pro-Israel pals and take down anyone daring to question the current Israeli military actions, with over $100 million to spend on ads and propaganda to defeat anyone who tells them that killing children is just not okay. AIPAC is legally designated as a 501c4, social welfare organization. That means contributions to AIPAC do not have to be made public under federal disclosure laws. Traditionally, AIPAC has kept the identity of its biggest donors a closely guarded secret. But hey, some secrets come out in the light. So the shining stars of the 2020 donor list read like the who's who of American elite. From the power plays of professional sports teams to muggles of private equity and real estate. This elected group is a melting pot of success. We got a Maryland congressman eyeing a Senate seat, a former maestro of Victoria's Secret, the brains behind the Zumba dance revolution, and the genius behind Squishmallows. That's a tongue twister. Squishmallows, charming the hearts of children everywhere. It's a lineup that proves philanthropy isn't just for the faint of heart. It's for the fabulous and fearless. True to form, using trauma, a massacre when a grenade attacked and killed a woman, a mother and her 2 children in Israel many moons ago, to justify the slaughter of over 60 Palestinians in retaliation, gave birth to AIPAC like a twisted, cunning, yet powerful lobbying organization. I.L. Keenan saw an opportunity to spin the narrative. Concerned that the Kibbutz incident would tarnish her image, he decided to create AIPAC to control the damage and shape the propaganda. Out of all the ashes of tragedy and on the hills of slaughter is how it all began. Always wanted to control the narrative, AIPAC has expressed concern about how they're being viewed today. According to Senator Christine Gilliard, Democrat of New York, on January 18th, she joined a donors-only meeting from the front lines to Capitol Hill, stating, "We're losing the communication war," she added, to absolutely horrific rhetoric against Israel, accusing the country of genocide. Shocking, I know. Accusing them of occupation. Yeah, we know. Accusing them of white supremacy. Oh my God, that too. It's beyond recognition. There is no truth to these narratives. Actually, there's truth to all the narratives, but okay. In other words, these darn Gen Xers are not buying what they are selling. A leaked memo to The Intercept showed the New York Times is playing a real game of Mad Libs, substituting controversial words like genocide and ethnic cleansing with more agreeable terms in their coverage of Israel's actions in Gaza. Gotta love a newspaper that puts a positive spin on things. Well, anything. In the memo, The Times, from the Standard's editor, Susan Welling, journalists are advised to steer clear of using terms like genocide, ethnic cleansing, and refugee camps when discussing Palestine. They're also instructed to avoid calling areas of Palestine occupied territory, and are discouraged from even mentioning the word Palestine altogether. Furthermore, the memo suggests that the words like slaughter, massacre, and carnage are just too damn emotional to accurately describe Israel's bombardment of genocide. She wants everything calm and light to coddle the American people, while we send billions in taxpayer money to Israel. So, some people ask, what does Israel do? Do they even have any exports? Yes, they do. Diamonds. Now, you might be saying to yourself, I didn't know Israel had diamond mines. Well, neither did we. And because they don't. They don't dig up the diamonds themselves. Oh, no. Instead, they import rough diamonds from places like Russia, Canada, and Botswana. And in their magic at the Israel Diamond Exchange in Tel Aviv, the Hustling Hub is home to over 15,000 people from about 1,500 companies, making it the ultimate hotspot for all things diamond related. So the next time you're rocking a dazzling diamond, just remember, it may have started its journey in a bustling apartheid diamond exchange of Israel. So why does the U.S. give Israel aid? Yeah, you gotta think of the U.S. like Tinkerbell to Israel, sparkling with financial fairy dust for decades. Uncle Sam was quick to give Israel a thumbs up when it was like, hey, I'm a new country now, in 1948. Since then, the U.S. has been BFS with Israel, providing it with more cash than your average sugar daddy. All because of hegemony. Mainly cultural hegemony. Israel is like the ultimate wingman for America in the Middle East, providing strategic positioning, top-notch intel, and some serious impressive tech collaborations. Back in the day, Israel was basically Americans' cool, level-headed friend who stepped in to balance out the annoying Soviet each other. Many countries in the Middle East have refused Western hegemony, which has caused conflict because homogeneous entities are lacking. Remember, everybody has to be the same so we can all get along. Unlike some countries that have mutual defense pact that's going on with the United States, like Japan and NATO members, well, Israel may not have the exact same deal, but they're definitely hanging out with us and one of the select few major non-NATO allies. And that just says they have some VIP status access to all the latest and greatest U.S. military gear. Israel has basically been living the sweet, sweet foreign aid life on the backs of American taxpayers. Seriously, they raked in a whopping $300 billion, adjusting for inflation, since day one. Sure, Uncle Sam has been pretty generous with other countries in that region like Egypt and Iraq, but let's be real. Israel is a golden child here. They're like the favorite grandkid that always gets the extra cookie at grandma's house. Since October 7th, 2023, the United States has enacted legislation providing at least $12.5 billion in military aid to Israel, which includes $3.8 billion from the bill in March 2024, in line with the current MOU, and $8.7 billion from Supplemental Appropriations Act in April 2024. So, are there any conditions or restrictions associated with receiving this aid? If you ask most Americans, no. But alas, while the U.S. is playing role of moral bouncer by saying you must have a clean record on human rights if you want to get into our security assistance club. It's like a velvet rope policy. But instead of designer outfits, we're talking about respecting basic human dignity. This is all thanks to the notorious Lily Law, which is basically America's way of saying, yo, we don't hang out with bullies. Many believe that the U.S. might be playing favorites with Israel when it comes to Lily Law. Some legal scholars and critics are raising eyebrows and asking, hey, why the special treatment? Let's give everyone a fair shake, shall we? Sounds like purchasing so many members of our Congress may need to refresh their ethical compass. I guess I explained Senate Bill S-720, aka Israel Anti-Boycott Act. Yeah, we got one of those. The bill says that Congress doesn't like a resolution from the United Nations Human Rights Council that tells countries to stop doing business with Israel. It also wants to use science and technology stuff. The bill changes a law from 1979 to say that U.S. should not support any countries trying to boycott friendly countries or people in the U.S. It also says the U.S. shouldn't support any boycotts against Israel from international groups. Basically, it says, you gotta like Israel, otherwise we won't do business with you. The bill also changes a law from 1945 to say that the U.S. shouldn't give credit for exporting goods and services if it's because of political reasons and if it's meant to hurt Israel. Again, clearly Congress is like, Israel's number one. This kind of makes you think in the words of Malcolm X. And he said, you gotta be careful. The newspapers will have you hating people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. Speaks volumes. It's not being radical but spitting facts. Moreover, the International Court of Justice has spoken. In a bold move on July 19th, 2024, the court declared that Israel's 57-year occupation of Palestinian lands is a big no-no. According to the panel of 15 judges, Israel has been playing dirty by annexing territories, asserting permanent control, and building settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The judges put their foot down and ordered Israel to stop their settlement construction, not now, but right now. They found that Israel was in breach of Article 3 of the International Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, including racial segregation and apartheid. Israel had some of their Western allies have rejected the accusation. Some believe Americans' ironclad support for Israel has eroded its international authority and claimed to uphold the international rules-based system. Are we witnessing the insecurity of a declining superpower? Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, aka Benjamin Malowski, is not just promising victory, he's promising total victory. Sounds intense, right? Well, history buffs raise an eyebrow at the phrase. It's got some serious deja vu resonance of a certain term that Germany describes as Nazis' not so pleasant endgame. Yeah, we're talking about the eerie word Ensiega, which basically meant final victory for the genocidal regime. It's just like a little food for thought. Maybe we should rethink our tide. When about 82% of Congress members are supportive of Israel and just 9% supportive of Palestine, we have to ask some really interesting questions. The ones who are more supportive of Israel received about on average 125,000 in donations in their last election, while the Palestinian supporters only got about 18 on average. The amount of money that donors gave to Congress members is pretty huge, over $58 million. Almost everyone in Congress got some kind of donation except for 33 people. So I guess our support is pretty much